In this video, we're going to use Runtime Code Loader to throw together a proof of concept of sorts for our idea, which we'll later adapt into a proper mod. Runtime Code Loader is essentially going to be our test bench so that we can quickly execute core parts of our mod. We'll be writing some of the most important code here, and we'll certainly adapt most of it into a new mod script later. Runtime code doesn't support yielding or anything like that, so whatever code we write in here is going to be executed instantly, as if our code is just a simple function. So to start off, I'll open runtimecode.lua, which is in the Runtime Code Loaders folder. I know generally what I'm going to do. As I said in the last video, the idea is to replace the summoned creatures, set up some timers, and destroy the creatures once the time has elapsed. However, as I also said earlier, we can't yield, so the only thing we can create is the summoning part until we set up a proper mod, which we'll do next time. So I'm going to try and create the summoning mechanics now. First we need to find the summoned creatures. The game provides a very powerful tool for finding entities within a level called Search Tools. To be able to search exclusively for the summoned creatures, we need to find something unique about them, such as their name. Let's have a look at one of the creatures now. I'm going to use the debug.getHeroTarget function to display information about what the hero is looking at. Hopefully we'll find something unique that will discern them from the rest of the creatures on the level. The UID is unique to each individual creature rather than each type of creature, so we can't use that. The name, however, is Dead Rising Entity. The game automatically names every summon this, except in the See the Future Colosseum. The name is all we need. If I didn't have the name, I'd at least be able to get the entity's ID, which is unique to the type of creature. I then have to do that for each type of summoned creature, of which I believe there is 5. Now we have something to identify the creatures by. First we create a search with type creature. This is one of the few types you can search for. If you're unsure, you can search for everything with all. Now we filter the search by name. There's a bunch of other functions for filtering, such as by EC type or by our own custom filter script, which is past every entity in the search that hasn't been filtered out yet. It should return true or false for whether to add it to the list or not. As for filtering by EC type, I believe EC type stands for Entity Component Type. Pretty much any functionality of one entity that separates it from another has an EC type. For example, lights have the light EC type, doors have the door EC type, and anything with health has the health EC type. These are all different components that are the building blocks which make up anything that exists in the game, and we can filter using them. But we don't need to do that. We have the summoned creature's preset name, so we can filter with that. I also want to filter by distance too. We don't need to search the entire level for the creatures when we can just search within a moderate distance of the hero. We can get the hero's position with questmanager.heroEntity, which gets the hero's entity, :getPosition, which returns a cvector3 object. And finally, we get the results. This function puts the results from the search into a nice Lua table which we can iterate over. Let's iterate over it and destroy everything we find. Now we'll test it in game. Cool, that works. Now we should try spawning our own things in their place. The function I'm going to use to spawn the creatures is createEntityFromIdAt. To spawn something, we pass this function the entity type's ID, the temporary name that will be given to it, and its position to spawn it at. To get the ID, we search the GDB. The GDB stores information about everything in existence, and while there are technically multiple GDBs, you only need to know about the main one. To get a record, we call gdb.getRecord and pass it the record name. It seems that not everything has a record name, but the record name of all creatures can be found easily, as they're in the leftover debug menu file. We then get the ID from the record with the getID function. I'm going to start with the beetles. They don't leave corpses behind, so they're easy to clean up if I can't destroy them through the script. Great, our default summons are being destroyed and the beetles are taking their place. However, these beetles are hostile. Let's set their faction and temporary relation with the hero to ally. Now we have some friendly beetles that'll help us with enemies. I do, however, want them to be destroyed when I rerun the code, so let's create a table to track them. The table will be defined in the runtime code loader's environment, so it will persist between runs. This means we can iterate over it at the start of every execution and destroy everything within. Of course, it won't exist on the first execution as we haven't defined it yet, so we'll need to add in a condition. Future me here, I forgot to insert the creatures into this table, so just imagine that this line exists. Okay, now we should try making them a little ghostly. The game has a helper function that lets us do this easily, so we'll call script function.ghost and pass it the alpha on a scale of 0 to 1 and the RGB values. We could also add particle effects to them, but we'll do that later when we're working with a proper mod. Spooky. Well, not really. Particle effects would be even better. Anyway, that's as much as we can do without a coroutine, so in the next video we'll turn this into a proper mod that Archon's Toolbox manages for us. Then we'll be able to automatically run this code when the player casts the Raise Dead spell.